Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden. And today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of Supertunias, and then we're going to be planting some Supertunias in my front garden. Whether you've been gardening for years or whether you're just getting started, most likely you've already heard of the term Supertunia. This is a specific variety of petunias that is grown by Proven Winners. Now, Proven Winners does a lot of marketing and advertising. A lot of bloggers, YouTubers, social media influencers grow Proven Winners products, including Supertunias. So with all the big hype from all of these people growing the Supertunias, a lot of people are like, should I be buying this? Are these really good Supertunias? Are they good petunias? Are they not worth the money? What's going on? So today I wanted to chat with you guys about the pros and cons of Supertunias. Now, to make sure I'm upfront with you all, I am not sponsored by Proven Winners. I purchased all of these myself with my own money. So the opinion I'm giving is completely my own and is not influenced whatsoever by the company. So a few things about Supertunias. These particular ones, they have a wide variety of like Supertunia Vista, Supertunia Mini Vista, a couple of different varieties depending on the size, shape of the blooms and the size and shape of the plants. They're typically anywhere from 12 to 24 inches in height and width. They all kind of have like a mounding and then trailing habit, as you can kind of see by some of these as they've been growing out. You can see how they're trailing out. I will say some of the varieties can get as wide as like 32 inches. They can get really, really huge. These do love full sun. I will say in my particular area, a little shade in the afternoon helps out a lot. These are utilized as an annual throughout most of the United States zones. They can be considered a perennial in zones 10 and 11. So let's talk about the pros of Supertunias. Pro number one, lots and lots and lots of blooms. These are heavy bloomers, so you are going to have round after round of blooms, which is really, really nice. They don't require any kind of deadheading, although you can deadhead them if you wish, but they will basically just cover their dead, so they'll just bloom right over the ones that have the blooms that have already faded. Pro number two, these are large, beautiful, wow factor plants. Absolutely love them for that purpose. You can put one plant in and it is going to cover a space like that, specifically varieties like bubblegum. The Supertunia Vista bubblegum is a monster of a plant. So if you have an area where you really need to cover a big area and almost utilize this as a little bit of ground cover, Supertunias are a really great option for you. Supertunias are also very versatile. They can be utilized in your actual landscape planted into your garden, but they're also really great for containers and also hanging baskets. Hanging basket is one of the things I really wanted to try with Supertunias this year because they have such a trailing habit. I think they're going to look really great kind of pouring over the side of a beautiful wrought iron basket. All in all, Supertunias are really, really fun burst of color within your garden. And so if you're really looking for, a wow factor, Supertunias is definitely the place to go to cover a large area. And so those are the biggest pros of having Supertunias in your garden. And so those are my thoughts on the pros for having Supertunias in your garden. They're pretty much unmatched regarding other petunias. I've tried wave petunias. I've tried a wide variety of mirage petunias. I've tried a wide variety, and nothing compares to the Supertunia's ability to produce blooms, the size, and the length of time it produces for. So let's talk about some cons of Supertunias. One of the biggest cons I've run into regarding Proven Winners Supertunias is their availability. Most of the nurseries in my area don't carry them, and if they do carry them, they carry a very small selection of them with very few varieties. For example, one of the best places I've been able to find Supertunias is Homegrown in Farmersville, and they only carry 4 varieties of Supertunias. They carry Paradise, Bubblegum, Fuchsia, and a 4th one that I can't remember, but I'll drop it below. So these Supertunias are kind of hard to find. Now you can order them online, but when you order them online, they're a little more expensive and you're paying for shipping. Do I think it's worth it in the end? That's up to you and what your budget looks like. If you're investing in something like the bubblegum, yeah, I think it can really be worth it, especially if you're wanting to cover some large areas. The plants don't come this large in the male. They come much smaller, but they will pick up very quickly and grow very quickly. The number two con for me is they don't do super well in my particular zone in the summer. So basically what I'll be doing is I'll be planting these now for the spring, but come into June, these will fizzle out. In the past, I've followed some of y'all's advices to cut them back and then try to just limp them through the summer. They look terrible. They really don't like the heat and they really don't last through the summer. So that's something that's not so great about them. So that is definitely one of their cons, in that they don't really stand up to the heat of my particular area. And third con for Supertunias is they're heavy feeders and they need a lot of water, which doesn't really necessarily sound like a big deal, but in my particular area, we've been struggling with droughts in the past, and so lots of watering is kind of hard. And if you're someone who goes to an area that has water restrictions, keeping these alive, if they're not getting enough water, is pretty tough. I also say that they definitely need to be fertilized. I like to use a liquid fertilizer on them at least every other week to keep them blooming for longer. They are very heavy feeders. So those are some of my pros and my cons of Supertunia. I will say for me at this point in time, my pros and the visual impact of these Supertunias and the joy that they bring me in my garden outweighs all the cons at this point in time. I would love it if there were more varieties of Supertunias in my area, if there were more varieties available. I think it's just going to take some time. Finding proven winners in the South is kind of difficult, and I think it's just going to take time for this northern company to work its way south into the United States and for there to be more availability of their products in our area. Okay, so today I'm going to be planting two varieties of Supertunias. The first one is a Supertunia Vista Fuchsia, and it's full to part sun. It is 12 to 24 inches, but max up to 32 inches and full sun. It says deadheading is not necessary. It says it's heat tolerant, but like I've said in the past, it really doesn't stand up to the summers in my area. And then the other variety is the tried and true bubblegum, and this guy is a go for it kind of plant. This guy gets huge. It says 32. This guy can get bigger, like way bigger. One plant, massive, absolutely beautiful. I do love the variety of colors it blooms. The more sun it gets, the more bold of the color we'll get. And so I'm really looking forward to getting both these planted out. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on the front garden and slightly around the side. I'm going to do another round of Supertunias in a week or so on the side of the house, but let's really just focus on the front. I'm going to go ahead and pre-place all my Supertunias and tell you about why I chose those spots. Okay, let's talk about where I've placed them. They're a little bit harder to see right now because I've got a wall of Mount Hood daffodils, which are just creamy and luscious and beautiful, but these will soon fade. So what I've done is I've tucked some Supertunias in a couple of areas back here where I struggle with weeds. And I would really like for them to just fill in around all of these different perennials that I've already got in the garden. So I've got one there and one there, and you can see the weed struggle back there, right? I need to add some mulch. But going ahead and getting these in, and then I'll mulch around them. I don't have time to do mulch today, but I'll mulch around them, and that'll really help to tamper down the weeds. But also it'll be a really nice kind of undergrowth for the perennials that grow up in this area. You can already see my serendipity allium coming up right there. Very pretty. And I think those will look really nice. I also tucked a couple more this way. So I think I might switch these two because I don't want to have too much of a block of color. I want to actually spread out my color a little bit this year. All right. So this bubblegum will take up this whole space while this mum, which is spreading vigorously, is growing in. And by the time that that mum gets ready to bloom is when the Supertunias will be petering out. And then I'll put another one beside it. This also is an area where I struggle with weeds. And so it'll be really helpful, and they'll flow over the side. It'll be really pretty, but I think that'll be a nice burst of color there. I'm also tucking in one additional Supertunia over here just for an additional burst of color, and then complementing it with another one tucked in right over here. Now, this dwarf Alberta spruce is going to come up at some point. I haven't decided when it's coming up, but for now, I do want to tuck a little bit of color around here, and I think the Supertunia will be great. It's an annual, it's not there forever, so when the time comes for me to dig this up, I won't feel guilty about messing up the Supertunia. But I think that'll be really nice just to add some pops of pinks throughout the landscape. Like I said, they're not going to be overly obvious right now because my daffodils are growing so well. But once the daffodils are done, which truthfully will be in the next couple of weeks, the Supertunias will probably be in full force. And then what I think I want to do is probably in the next couple of weeks, I want to tuck a few more Supertunias going this way around the curve and then around the side as well. And I'll probably stick to the same color format of the bubblegum and the fuchsia, just so that we can have some similar thoughts throughout the process. I don't want every section to be completely different. It's really nice to have some things reiterated throughout the garden so that it makes sense together. So, you know, popping maybe a couple over here and tucking there and just all along the side would go a long way to tie in the front garden to the side garden. Okay, we're going to use some slow release fertilizer. In particular, I'm using Plant Tone today, and we're going to add that to each of the holes. And so basically, I'm just going to dig a hole, add the fertilizer, and go ahead and get these planted. So let's get that knocked out. So we are expecting a bunch of rain tomorrow, so this is a great time to plant. I always tell people, hey, if you have a big rainstorm come in, get all your plants in the ground so that they can be well watered by the rain. Some of y'all might be wondering why I'm getting rid of the dwarf Alberta spruce. These guys have suffered with spider mites the last 2 years, and I'm just over it. And once you have damage to pine needles, they don't replace themselves, so they don't come back in those areas. So both of these have massive bald spots in different areas are on them. Oh, I totally forgot to put in the fertilizer. I'll put some around the base. There we go. Okay, I think they look really nice. There's a nice pop of color in here. I like the bold pinks. I think are fun. The bold pop of the bubblegum Supertunia, and the fuchsia. They'll fill in that entire area right there. You won't see any of the soil. And I ended up moving this guy over a little bit just so he makes sense being closer to these other ones. So we'll have a burst of color all across here. I think it'll be nice. I'd like to tuck a few more in there. A few more other places. Look how fabulous this is up front. Planted this up in the late fall. All the pansies, violas, Dusty Miller. Absolutely stunning. I'm so happy with how this ended up going, and it's only going to get fuller. These will last me through till May. And then I definitely think having some additional Supertunias like right about here would be nice. Maybe a couple just tucked in a couple of different places. Let's take a look at this front area or this side area over here, which is stunning right now. Look at those bridal wreath spireas. Those are ridiculous. And the Ruby Falls Redbud is blooming. And then we have daffodils and a riot of color from all of these violas. Look at all this. Absolutely beautiful. I love this mix of violas with the yellows, whites, purples. So pretty. And then look at these. I need to cut a few of these. These don't last very long. I need to cut a few of these and enjoy them before they're gone. They really only last a couple of weeks. So pretty over here. But you can see some other areas where I'd like to tuck in a few more Supertunias just for some pops of color. I think it would really look really nice. Check out those snapdragons, y'all. Those are amazing. Those look so good. Everybody's looking really good. Everything's coming along really well. Okay, so that looks really good. I know it's weird that I dedicated a whole video to Supertunias, but they're so hot on the market right now, and this is my 4th or 5th year planting them, and so I have a lot of experience with them, and you know, I have a lot of positive experience and I have some negative experience. And so I thought it'd be really good to put out my thoughts, because a lot of people are like, is it worth it? And when I say is it worth it, meaning is it worth the price, because they're typically more expensive, and is it worth the drive and effort to actually locate them in my area, because they are hard to find in my area. Now, I have found a sweet spot at Homegrown in Farmersville in that they sell their Supertunias for $8.95. It's a gallon, like a gallon size Supertunia. That's a steal. Everywhere else, minimum $12.95 or even more for Supertunias. So they only carry the 3 or 4 varieties. I can't remember what they are again. But they only carry those varieties. There are so many other varieties I would like to try, like Bordeaux. I'd also like to try I think it's the Cafe Latte. And I've also been interested in I believe it's limoncello, but I'm not sure. I'll put pictures and names up of all those some of the varieties that I'm interested in trying out, but I can't find them locally. So it is what it is. Do I think it's worth the extra money and the extra effort? I do. I do think it's worth it. The way they spread is what makes them worth it. Now, if you're just looking for a beautiful bunch of petunias and you don't need them to spread and take up a giant space, then you can definitely go with some standard petunias that you might get at your local nursery. I think those are great. Also, if you don't have Supertunias readily available in your area, definitely try the wave petunias. I do think that those are a pretty close second to Supertunias. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you drop your comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Supertunias. If you like them, if you don't like them, what varieties you would like to try, what varieties you've had success with. Give me your opinion. I'd love to hear it. All right, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when my latest videos are up. And make sure you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.